Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to another episode of Big Blue Sports Talk. I'm your host, Matt Volz, a freshman at SUNY Fredonia, and I'm here to talk sports, so let's do that. 2 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, beautiful fall Wednesday afternoon. Happy November, everybody. And we'll get to sports. Of course, we always like to start off talking about Fredonia sports, and then we turn the page to what's going on around the professional sports leagues, and we finish off talking about the Bills and the Sabres. A lot to cover on both of those fronts. Of course, the Bills with a big-time win over the Green Bay Packers this past Sunday night, but they gave us a little bit of a Halloween scare at the end of the game. All treats, no tricks for the Buffalo Sabres and Monday night's win over the Detroit Red Wings. And then we'll also cover the wild events of yesterday's NFL trade deadline, one of the busiest trade deadlines that I can remember, to be completely honest. So we'll start by talking about the Fredonia sports, as we always do. Most of the fall sports are finishing up their seasons. Of course, the soccer teams concluded last week. The cross-country teams just finished up. Their SUNYAC championships were this past weekend. The men's cross-country team finishing 4th out of 10 teams in Oswego this past Saturday morning. Sembel Koshi, the lead runner for the men's team, finishing in 15th spot. Ted Tomasello in 18th. Josh Walters was 21st. Kyle Campbell 23rd. And Patrick Klinger in 27th. The Blue Devils finishing 4th with 104 points, so their season has come to a close. The women's cross-country schedule, take a look at that. They were also headed to Oswego for the SUNYAC championships this past Saturday, and the women's cross-country team taking 7th out of 10 teams. Alexandra Battaglia finishing in 21st place, the lead runner for the Blue Devils. Elizabeth Gloss was 35th. Vanessa Ryle was 39th. Kristen Kellman, 45th. Aaron Kuhl, 48th. The Blue Devils finish in 7th with 188 points. So the winter sports are just about to get underway. There is a women's basketball scrimmage tonight at home against Niagara County Community College at 6 p.m. tonight at Dodds Hall. They open up their regular season next Tuesday at 7 o'clock when they host Hiram College. Is that Hiram? Something like that. Something to that effect. The men's basketball team, they just had a scrimmage on Saturday against JCC. They open up their regular season at Allegheny College down in Meadville, Pennsylvania on Tuesday, November 8th at 7 o'clock. The men's hockey team starts their SUNYAC play Friday night when they host the Buffalo State Bengals at 7 o'clock at Steel Hall Ice Arena. They had 2 road games against Trine in Angola, Indiana, losing 5-1 in the opener last Friday, and claiming a 3-3 tie on Saturday. They actually lost 4-3, but I believe in college hockey, if I'm correct, yes, they went to overtime, and that technically counts as a tie. Same as the NHL rulebooks are kind of the same, where you have 1 point for an overtime loss or a shootout loss, which is technically considered a tie in the grand scheme of things, because back before 2005, we had ties in the NHL, which was just a crazy and wild time to be alive, which I wouldn't know. I was only alive for like a year before that. But that is a look at your Fredonia State athletic teams. Their winter sports obviously getting underway. The volleyball team, actually, to talk a little bit about fall sports coming to a close, the volleyball team finished up their regular season this past Saturday against Houghton. And a few close sets, really the story of the year for this Fredonia State women's volleyball team. Close sets, but just unable to finish them, as they ended up falling in 3 sets to the Houghton Highlanders this past Saturday to finish the regular season with a record of 4-20. So that is a look at your Fredonia State athletic teams. Now let's take a look. We'll talk about the NFL trade deadline first. So yesterday was the NFL's trade deadline, which usually is around the halfway point of the season, is where they usually have it. And I got to be 100% honest. Yesterday's trade deadline, and even the week or so leading up to it, is the busiest trade deadline that I can remember, to be completely honest. Usually the NFL trade deadline is kind of slow. There's not a lot of huge deals being made. Usually there's maybe 3, maybe 4 trades, and they're not hugely important. I mean, the big one was Von Miller getting traded from the Broncos to the Rams. We remember that. But other than that, it's usually pretty slow. I mean, as opposed to the trade deadlines for hockey or especially basketball or baseball, where there's usually a lot of players getting moved, a lot of moving parts. That was never really the case for the NFL trade deadline. This year was a little bit different. We had some pretty notable players moved. The most notable trades, of course, taking place before the deadline. The Panthers trading wide receiver Robbie Anderson to the Arizona Cardinals in exchange for 6th and 7th round picks. That came the day after Robbie Anderson was actually basically kicked out of the game by his own coach, as Steve Wilkes, the interim head coach of the Carolina Panthers, basically dismissed him, sent him to the locker room. Carolina traded him on Monday. The biggest deal happened before the deadline, of course, with the Carolina Panthers trading all-pro running back Christian McCaffrey to the San Francisco 49ers. They got 4 draft picks in that deal. It was a second rounder, third rounder, and fourth rounder in 2023, and a fifth rounder in 2024. That was the final total that the Panthers got for Christian McCaffrey. And McCaffrey, of course, as we all know, he is a great fantasy player. He doesn't always stay healthy, but my goodness, on Sunday, I believe he was the first player since LaDainian Tomlinson with a rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown, and a passing touchdown. If you had Christian McCaffrey on your fantasy team, congratulations, you probably won. If you were playing against Christian McCaffrey this week, I am so very sorry. Anyways, James Robinson traded from Jacksonville to the Jets for a conditional 6th round pick. The Bears trading pass rusher Robert Quinn to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 4th round pick. The New York Giants trading wide receiver Kadarius Toney to the Kansas City Chiefs for 3rd and 6th round picks in 2023. That's kind of scary to put a really fast receiver like Toney on the team with Mahomes. Roquan Smith, this was where the trades really started picking up yesterday, was when the Bears traded Roquan Smith to the Baltimore Ravens in exchange for A.J. Klein, former Buffalo Bill, along with a 2023 second-round pick and a 2023 fifth-round pick. Then the deals started rolling in, and some of them were a little bit surprising. The Detroit Lions trading young tight end T.J. Hawkinson to the division rival Minnesota Vikings, along with 2 fourth-round picks in exchange for a second-round pick in the upcoming draft and a third-round pick in 2024. Hawkinson was the 8th overall pick in the 2019 draft by the Lions, and a little bit surprising to see him traded to a division rival, no less. I didn't think he was going to get traded at all. That was kind of a surprise. Guys who I did think would get traded, Chase Claypool. That was not a huge surprise. The Pittsburgh Steelers trading former Notre Dame wide receiver Chase Claypool to the Chicago Bears in exchange for a second-round pick. Maybe the biggest trade of the deadline day was the Denver Broncos trading edge rusher Bradley Chubb along with a fifth-round pick to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for running back Chase Edmonds, a 2023 first-round pick, and a 2024 fourth-round pick. And I should note that that first-round pick is not Miami's pick. That first-round pick is actually San Francisco's that the Dolphins got when they traded down. The 49ers moved up to go get Trey Lance in the draft. William Jackson also was traded from Washington to Pittsburgh. The Dolphins acquired Jeff Wilson from the 49ers. The Atlanta Falcons trading wide receiver Calvin Ridley to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a fifth-round pick and a conditional fourth. Ridley, of course, is serving a suspension for betting on games. The Bills made 2 trades. One other notable trade outside of the Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs trading defensive back Rashad Fenton to the Atlanta Falcons for a conditional 7th-round pick. The Bills made 2 trades. Buffalo traded running back Zach Moss and a conditional 6th-round pick to the Indianapolis Colts in exchange for pass-catching running back Nyheim Hines. And the Bills also traded a 7th-round pick to the Atlanta Falcons in exchange for safety Dean Marlowe. Of course, Bills fans who kind of know the roster a little bit, they may remember Marlowe. He was here before. He was a big-time Sean McDermott guy. He is very, very excited to come back to Buffalo, and I think a lot of Bills fans, even though Marlowe is not necessarily, listen, the guy's not an all-pro, but he's a great locker room player, and the guys love him. He's just overall a phenomenal influence for the locker room, and a lot of people are just really over the moon thrilled to have this guy play. So that was a look at the trade. And like I said, really, really just wild deadline. Absolutely insane trade deadline. A lot of moving parts. a lot going on. So that's a look at the trade deadline, and we're going to take just a short break, play a little bit of music for you. And when we come back, we'll talk about the scores from last week's NFL games and the upcoming preview of next week's games. Of course, the Bills traveling to New Jersey to take on the New York Jets. And we'll preview the Sabres game we'll preview tonight's Sabres game against the Pittsburgh Penguins at home. Sabres were in their reverse retro uniforms tonight. And we will recap Monday night's dominant win over the Detroit Red Wings. We'll also talk World Series and some NBA scores. We'll sprinkle a few of those in there as well. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back to talk a little bit more sports. I'm Matt Volz for Big Blue Sports Talk. Stay tuned.
Hey Siri, what should I listen to?
You should listen to WCVF FM 88.9 The Voice.
Does it have variety?
WCVF has variety. It is whatever those Fredonia College kids and community members decide to put on the air.
That sounds freaking amazing. Thanks, girl.
I met you on the rooftop, shining with the moonlight. Honey, you had me. So when's the band gonna start? You got me in a bad way, caught me on my last legs. Honey, you held me and pulled me out of the dark. Town bar. No, I sound like such a drag here, baby, but oh, we used to laugh so hard about it. We were only kids back then, lying on some broke down car, thinking out loud, dreaming under neon stars. You were sleeping, I was tracing. Every part of you a constellation. I knew you, but I was terrified. Sweet until the last drop, straight across the blacktop, lighting the night up, and burning out in the sky. Town bar. No, I sound like such a drag here, baby, but oh, we used to laugh so hard about it. We were only kids back then, lying on some broke down car, thinking out loud, dreaming under neon stars. Ooh. Thinking out loud, dreaming under neon stars.
On the air at 88.9 WCVF. We are the campus and community voice of Fredonia.
All right, I hope you enjoy that. I did. That's a nice song. I like that. That was called Neon Stars by Wild Rivers on their album Sidelines. I like that song. That was nice. I really enjoyed that. All right, so let's take a look at what happened in the NFL last week. A lot happened, as always. No surprise there that it was a busy week. On Thursday night, you had a battle between two teams who were really just struggling to get it going. Has not been a particularly great season for either the Baltimore Ravens or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both teams went into the game probably with the records that they thought they could be better. The Ravens went in 4-3, Bucs 3-4, and it was a decent game. My goodness, we finally had some scoring on Thursday Night Football. What do you know? A lot of people didn't think that still existed. The Ravens beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 27-22. Tampa Bay is now 3-5, and they are out of first place. The Atlanta Falcons now have first place in that division. Ravens are 5-3, even though Brady threw for 325 yards. We'll get more on the Falcons later. Sunday's games in London, the Broncos beating the Jacksonville Jaguars 21-17 to end their losing streak. Russell Wilson throwing for 252 and a touchdown. Travis Etienne did run for 156 yards and a touchdown. Denver improves to 3-5. Jags dropped to 2-6. What a game down in Atlanta between the Panthers and the Falcons. They knew that the winner would be in first place by virtue of Tampa Bay's Thursday night loss and some tiebreakers. And it was a wild game between the Panthers and the Falcons. And if I can even remember correctly, because this was just absolutely bonkers from start to finish, it was a tight game, tight contest all the way through. And Carolina scored with a few minutes left. Then Atlanta answered. And then P.J. Walker, who, by the way, is Carolina's third quarterback, drove the Panthers down the field and tossed up a Hail Mary. And this is at a point where Carolina was down 6 at this point. So it was 34-28, Atlanta over Carolina, and P.J. Walker just throws up an absolute prayer. And DJ Moore sneaks behind the Falcons secondary and makes the catch, ties the game, and then does something that as a coach would actually probably make me lose my marbles. As DJ Moore took his helmet off as part of the celebration, that you can't do that. That's a penalty. So there's a 15-yard penalty on DJ Moore, which moved the extra point back to something like a 48-yard extra point, which Carolina's kicker missed, so that forced overtime. Then the Panthers drive down the field again, and they set up the game-winning field goal. I almost think Marcus Mariota might have actually gotten picked off in overtime, but don't quote me on that. So they drive back down, and they set up Eddie Pinheiro for the game-winning kick. And this one was, I want to say this was like a 33, 34-yard kick, and he missed it. And then Atlanta drives all the way down the field, and Younghoe Koo nails the winner. 37-34, Atlanta wins a wild game. The Falcons are 4-4, and they are in first place in the NFC South. Who would have thought that at about the halfway point in the season, the Atlanta Falcons would be in first place in that division? A lot of people thought they might be in last. The Panthers dropped to 2-6 on the season. They are back there with the Saints in the bottom two in that division. Down in Dallas, the Cowboys put a lot of points on the board. They beat the Chicago Bears 49-29. Tony Pollard runs for 3 touchdowns. Dallas is 6-2 on the season. The Bears are 3-5. In Detroit, the Lions, you almost had it. The Lions were so close. They were actually ahead of Miami at one point. I believe it was 21-7. They were leading the Dolphins. Miami comes back to win it 31-27. A strong day for Tua Tagovailoa. 382 yards and 3 touchdowns passing. Tyreek Hill had 12 catches for 188 yards. Jalen Waddle was also over 100. The Dolphins are now 5-3 on the season, tied with the Jets for second in the AFC East. Lions dropped to 1-6. In Minnesota, the Vikings hang on to beat the Cardinals 34-26. Minnesota picks up their 5th straight win. They are now 6-1. Vikings will be coming to Orchard Park to play the Bills in 2 weeks. The Cardinals drop to 3-5. A shutout down in New Orleans as the Saints blank the Raiders 24-0. Andy Dalton throwing for 229 yards and 2 scores. Alvin Kamara rushed for 62 and a touchdown and had 96 yards receiving and 2 touchdown catches. Kamara's name was tossed around in trade deadline rumors. He didn't end up getting moved. Saints are 3-5. Raiders dropped to 2-5. In New Jersey, the Jets had a chance to beat the Patriots for the first time since, I think, 2015. And they were on a roll. They were 5-2. And Zach Wilson, yes, he threw for 355 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also threw 3 mind-numbing interceptions as the Patriots beat the Jets 22-17. Bill Belichick passes George Halas for second on the all-time head coaching wins list. Only Don Shula is ahead of those two gentlemen. The Patriots are 4-4, but still in last place in the AFC East. The Jets dropped to 5-3. The Jets, of course, will host Buffalo on Sunday, and we'll get to that later. Battle of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and the Eagles remain unbeaten. A 35-13 win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jalen Hurts throws for 4 touchdowns, 3 of them to A.J. Brown, who also had 156 yards receiving. The Philadelphia Eagles are 7-0, and the Steelers dropped to 2-6. AFC South battle. In Houston, the Titans hang on to beat the Texans 17-10. Derrick Henry with a monster game. 219 yards, 2 touchdowns. I believe it was the 4th straight game against the Texans where Derrick Henry has rushed for at least 200 yards and 2 or more touchdowns. The Titans are 5-2. They have a commanding lead in the AFC South. Texans dropped to 1-5-1. Speaking of the AFC South, the Indianapolis Colts at home against the Washington Commanders. And the Commanders come away with the win, 17-16. Taylor Heineke thrown for 279 yards. Washington is 4-4. The Colts dropped to 3-4-1. Out in L.A., not exactly paradise for the defending Super Bowl champs as the Rams lose at home 31-14 to the 49ers. We already talked about McCaffrey with a touchdown pass, a touchdown run, and a touchdown catch. The 49ers are 4-4 and are now solidly in second place. In the NFC West, Rams dropped to 3-4. In Seattle, the Seahawks getting a big win over the New York Giants, 27-13. Geno Smith throwing for 212 and 2 scores. Seahawks are 5-3. They're still leading the NFC West. Giants dropped to 6-2. Sunday night, as we'll talk about more, the Bills beat the Packers 27-17. It was not quite that close, but the Bills let it get close late. Buffalo is 6-1. They've now won 4 in a row. The Packers, on the flip side, have lost 4 in a row. They are 3-5. And then Monday night in Cleveland, the Browns dominating the Bengals 32-13. Cleveland is 3-5 and looking pretty dangerous. The Bengals have dropped to 4-4, and the Bengals they're struggling to get it going. They didn't score any points until the fourth quarter of this game. The defending AFC champs are struggling to get off the ground in 2022. Chiefs and Chargers were on their bye weeks. We'll take a look at the games coming up next week as the Thursday night game. Oh, boy. Tomorrow night, 8:15 on Prime Video, the 7-0 Philadelphia Eagles travel to Houston to take on the 1-5-1 Houston Texans. The Eagles are 14-point favorites for this game. That one could be interesting on Thursday night, but you never know. On Sunday, some interesting games. The Falcons hosting the LA Chargers. These are the 1 o'clock games, Chargers and Falcons. The Bears hosting the Miami Dolphins. Bengals at home against the Carolina Panthers. An NFC North battle as the Lions host the Green Bay Packers. That could be a very interesting game. The New England Patriots hosting the Indianapolis Colts. No Brady versus Manning. Instead, it's going to be somebody versus somebody. Sam Ellinger versus either Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. Not quite Brady Manning, but anyways, the Bills and Jets, of course, at 1 o'clock. Vikings Commanders in D.C. and some news about the Commanders, too. We'll get to in a minute. The Raiders and the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's enough for the 1 o'clock slate. 4:05, the Cardinals hosting the Seahawks. 4:25, the Bucks hosting the Rams. That'll be interesting. The Sunday night game, 8:20 on NBC, the Kansas City Chiefs host the Tennessee Titans in a battle of 5-2 teams, although the Chiefs open up as 12.5-point favorites for this game. And then the Monday night game, the Saints hosting the Baltimore Ravens Monday night on ESPN. 6 teams on their bye weeks this week. The Cleveland Browns, Dallas Cowboys, Denver Broncos, New York Football Giants, Pittsburgh Steelers, and San Francisco 49ers are on their bye weeks coming up. All right. Now that was a handful, I hope everybody's still, all right with all that. The NHL scores, as we talked about, the Sabres had a monster game on Monday night. We'll get to that later. As there were some games last night, Sabres didn't play. They play tonight. Low-scoring game in Manhattan as Chris Kreider's overtime winner proves to be the only goal of the game. A shutout for Igor Shesterkin as the Rangers beat the Flyers 1-0. The Tampa Bay Lightning taking down the Ottawa Senators 4-3, a 3-point night for Nikita Kucherov. The Vegas Golden Knights beating the Washington Capitals 3-2. In overtime, Shea Theodore scores the winner. Vegas is 9-2 and looking really good to start the year. The Islanders head to Chicago and pick up a 3-1 win over the Blackhawks behind 2 points from Brock Nelson. The Wild beat the Montreal Canadiens 4-1, a great night for Marc-Andre Fleury, and 2 goals for Kirill Kaprizov. High-scoring game in Pittsburgh. The Bruins beat the Penguins 6-5. 4-point night for Hampus Lindholm, including the game winner. He also had 3 assists. Boston is 9-1 on the season. Pittsburgh's playing in Buffalo tonight. The Stars beating the LA Kings 5-2. 2 goals and 1 assist for Rupe Hintz. And a goal and 2 assists for Jason Robertson as well. The Kraken go to Calgary and beat the Flames 5-4. Matty Beniers scoring the winner as 5 of the 9 goals were scored in the third period. The Oilers' high-scoring game, they beat the Predators 7-4. A 5-point night for Leon Draisaitl, a goal and 4 assists. Connor McDavid, 2 goals and 2 assists, and a hat trick for Evander Kane. Oilers are 7-3. And the Coyotes at home in their college stadium, that's completely serious. They beat the Florida Panthers 3-1. The Devils head to Vancouver and beat the Canucks 5-2. The Canucks, by the way, have now won games, but they're 2-6-2. 2-point night for Jack Hughes, and Bo Horvat had both Canucks goals. And a shootout game, an exciting game, in San Jose as the Ducks beat the Sharks 6-5 for back-to-back wins, despite a 4-point night for Erik Karlsson, and he actually had a hat trick as well. So a disappointing night for Erik Karlsson to not get the win there, but a good one for Anaheim for their second straight win. Let's take a look at the games tonight. Of course, as we know, the Sabres at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins, 7:30 tonight on TNT. And speaking of TNT, that being the nickname for Sabres forward Tage Thompson, 9 points in the last 2 games for number 72. That ties a franchise record. He is sitting at 12 points in the Sabres' 9 games this year, 6 goals and 6 assists. Pittsburgh coming in at 4-4-2. Sabres are 6-3. Penguins are favored to win that game, though. 7 o'clock tonight, Leafs at home against the Philadelphia Flyers. The Leafs are 4-4-2, looking to kind of get back on it, so to speak. They haven't really gotten out of the gate with that much. They haven't really had a whole lot working for them coming out of the gate. 4-4-2 is not particularly awful, but it could be significantly better, and especially for the Leafs, you would expect that a team like that would be very successful considering the talent they have, namely, Mitch Martin, Austin Matthews, whoever else, John Tavares, Morgan Riley. Anyways, let's go to the NBA. There's a few games on tonight. 6 o'clock, the 76ers at home against the Washington Wizards. 7:30 tonight, the Cavs hosting the Celtics on ESPN. That should be a good one. The Miami Heat hosting the Sacramento Kings. New York Knicks at home against the Atlanta Hawks. Those are the 7:30 games. Couple 8 o'clock games, the Chicago Bulls at home against the Charlotte Hornets. The Houston Rockets hosting the Los Angeles Clippers. The Milwaukee Bucks, still unbeaten on the year, hosting the Detroit Pistons. And the San Antonio Spurs hosting the Toronto Raptors. 8:30 tonight, the Dallas Mavericks at home against the Utah Jazz. 10 o'clock on ESPN, the Portland Trailblazers hosting the Memphis Grizzlies. That game on ESPN. And then at 10:30, the Lakers hosting the Pelicans. Lakers off to a 1-5 start. Ooh. Not exactly what they want there. However, we turn the page to the World Series. Of course, hey, we got a championship series going on. The Philadelphia Phillies. So I mentioned last week on the show that it seems to be a pretty good time to be a Philadelphia sports fan right now. Absolutely. My goodness. The Eagles are 7-0, and the Phillies won 7-0 the other night. The Philadelphia Phillies won Game 3 of the World Series last night by the final score of 7-0. Rough outing for Lance McCullers Jr., as Philadelphia now has a 2-1 series lead over Houston. Game 4 of the World Series is tonight from Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. 8:03 first pitch on Fox. Aaron Nola will get the start, or at least he's expected to, for the Phillies, and Christian Javier is expected to be on the mound for Houston. So Astros, Phillies, Game 4 of the World Series tonight. That definitely should be an exciting one. It's the Phillies, only 87-game winners this year, but Philadelphia is now 2 wins away from the World Championship, which would be the first time since 2008. All right, we'll take a short break. We'll come back and talk about the Buffalo Sabres. First, we're going to play some music for you, And I hope you like the last song. This one is called Your One-Way Street by the band Anxious on their album Little Green House. So we'll be right back to talk Buffalo Sabres. Then we'll finish it off with the Bills. Thanks for tuning in to Big Blue Sports Talk on WCVF, the campus and community voice of Fredonia and Dunkirk. We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
The best memories of me. I find mistakes that were fronting. Sometimes I beg you one last time is a friend. I do it yet. Why does this have to end? Feeling something's leaving, but I can't change. 'Cause I'm running. You said you are, this is sinking, no one's to blame. We both have changed. On the Friday, sucking up to missing you. You are trying to be when I was close to you. So is it me? If I cause you know what to do, you're on me. You have everything to prove. Feeling something's leaving, but I can't change. 'Cause I'm running. You said you are, this is sinking, no one's to blame. We both have changed.
Covering Dunkirk, Fredonia, and all of northern Chautauqua County, this is WCVF 88.9 FM, The Voice.
Tune in every Friday at noon to catch one of Fredonia's hottest radio shows, High Noon Friday. Catch the community voices on local news. Keep updated on the latest sports games, the weather, world affairs and international news, and other entertaining segments like trivia and Just the Facts. High Noon Friday, every Friday at noon, on 88.9 WCVF and 89.5 WDVL.
All right, welcome back to Big Blue Sports Talk. It is a little bit past 2:30, and it's now time to talk Buffalo Sabres. And, well, I hope everyone had a chance to tune in to Monday night's game against the Detroit Red Wings, a game that started slow and then picked up pretty darn quickly. The Buffalo Sabres displayed their offensive might on Monday night as they frightened the Detroit Red Wings, an 8-3 win, a 6-point night for Tage Thompson, 3 goals and 3 assists. The scoring summary of the game, it actually was somewhat slow going offensively early on. Buffalo only scored the first goal of the game with about 3 minutes and 8 seconds left in the first when Tage Thompson scored, with the assist coming from Jeff Skinner and Casey Fitzgerald picking up his first point of the season. Fitzgerald and other defensemen like Cale Clay getting a lot of minutes in the absence of guys like Matthias Samuelsson and Ilya Lyubushkin, as well as Henry Jokiharju from the Sabres lineup. So Tage Thompson opened the scoring from Skinner and Fitzgerald, and it was 1-0 Buffalo after 1. Then the scoring picked up a little bit. Early on in the second, only about a minute and a half in, Olli Mata scores on a little bit of a bounce goal. Mata picks up his second of the year, with the assist coming from Andrew Kopp and Philip Hronek. So Detroit ties it. Then just a few minutes later, Jack Quinn picks up his first goal of 2022, the outstanding youngster drafted 8th overall in 2020. Quinn nets his first of 2022, gets assist from Tage Thompson and Kyle Okposo to put Buffalo up 2-1. It stayed 2-1 Buffalo for a little while, and then Tage Thompson with a nice pass to find Jeff Skinner wide open in front of the net, who buried it behind Wings goaltender Alex Nedeljkovic with about 5.5 minutes left in the second. Skinner's second of the year. Thompson gets the assist. Buffalo's up 3-1. Then, minute and a half left in the frame. Buffalo on the power play, and Tage Thompson buries goal number 2 of the game. Such a weapon on the power play with his incredible shot. Thompson picks up his 5th of the year, 2nd of the game, assist coming from Alex Tuch and Kyle Okposo. 4-1 Sabres, however. Detroit would answer back. Just about 33 seconds later, David Perron on a turnover in front of the net. Perron scores from Joe Veleno and Moritz Seider. 4-2 Buffalo after 2. Early in the third, the Wings would answer back. Dylan Larkin scoring shorthanded on a breakaway, and that was kind of a bad pass, resulted in a 2-on-1 for the Wings. Owen Power was the defenseman back for the Sabres. Larkin attempted the crossing pass that Owen Power made a nice play on, and it deflected off his skate. However, I think Power might have been trying to kick the puck to his stick, because when he did, the puck bounced off of Power's skate and right back to Dylan Larkin, who buried it past Sabres goaltender Eric Comrie. Then it was 4-3, and Sabres fans are thinking, oh, this is a little close, so I don't know how much we like this. But then a Buffalo barrage would come late in the third. Buffalo would get another power play with about 7 minutes left, and Rasmus Dahlin would score with the assist coming from Casey Middlestat and who else but Tage Thompson. 5-3 Buffalo. Less than 2 minutes later, Dylan Cousins joins the fun. Cousins racing down the ice, buries a wrist shot past Nedeljkovic for his 4th of the year, assist coming from Owen Power and J.J. Peterka. Then, about a minute after that, Thompson gets the hat trick, a beautiful dangle goal around Alex Nedeljkovic. He gets the assist from Skinner and Dahlin. It's 7-3 Buffalo. Tage Thompson has a hat trick. And then with less than a minute to go, Rasmus Asplund says, you know what, why not? It's a good time as any for me to score my 1st of the year. Asplund scores from Peyton Krebs and Zemgus Girgensons. All in all, Buffalo beats Detroit 8-3. The Sabres outshot the Wings 46-18. Detroit did out-hit Buffalo 20-11. Faceoffs were very close. Detroit had a slight edge 33-32. Now, as far as how everyone played in this game, it's a bit misleading. I understand that Alex Nedeljkovic let in 8 goals, but he also had to face 46 shots. I don't think that really until the end, Nedeljkovic had all that bad of a game. I think that it was a not great, and then it turned into a Halloween nightmare in the third period thanks to the Sabres' dominant young offense. And as far as Eric Comrie is concerned, Comrie, when you face 18 shots, you would kind of hope to save more than 15. You would kind of hope that if you're only facing 18 shots, you would save 17 or get the shutout or maybe 16. The fact that, I don't mean to dog on Comrie or anything like that, but the fact that there were 18 shots and Comrie let 3 past him, is not the greatest. But he also could have given up 8 goals. So I guess that's a plus. The Sabres didn't give up 8 goals. They scored 8 goals. So Buffalo now moves to 6-3 on the season. They've won back-to-back with wins over Chicago and Detroit. Sabres are back home tonight against the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are coming off of a tough overtime loss to the Boston Bruins last night. The Penguins' road record this year is not the most impressive. Pittsburgh is just 1-4-1 on the road. They are 3-0-1 at home. 7:30 tonight. This game is on TNT. The Penguins are favored to win. The probable goaltenders, not sure who will start for the Sabres or who will start for Pittsburgh. Tristan Jarry, he's got 4 wins. He's got all 4 of Pittsburgh's wins, but he's got a 3.42 goals against average and a 904 save percentage, which a 904 save percentage is not bad. He's got a 4-2-1 record. Goals against average is a little scary, but then again, that could be skewed due to last night. And Casey DeSmith, 0-2-1. Their other goaltender, 2.97 goals against average, and a 913 save percentage. For Buffalo, if I'm going to be completely honest, I think Craig Anderson has played better than Eric Comrie, and of course the numbers would definitely support that. Comrie is 3-3 with a 3.34 goals against average and a 902 save percentage. Craig Anderson's 3-0, 1.66 goals against average, 946 save percentage. I wouldn't be surprised to see Anderson get the start tonight, considering the fact that Comrie started the last couple. So I think you could see Anderson, and maybe, I'm not sure if we'll see DeSmith or not. The Penguins are also pretty banged up, too. They're dealing with their fair share of injuries. They've got, Teddy Bluger is on injured reserve, and they've got other guys, Jake Gensel, Jason Zucker, Chris Letang, and Jeff Carter are all day today. This is a Penguins team that's lost 5 straight games. The Pittsburgh, they had a road trip that did not go well. They lost 6-3 to the Oilers, 4-1 to the Flames, 5-1 to the Canucks, 3-1 to Seattle, and they lost 6-5 in overtime to the Bruins last night. Not exactly a stellar performance for Pittsburgh. The Sabres are scoring more than 4 goals per game and allowing fewer than 3. That's what happens when you've got a 6-3 record. Pittsburgh, it's pretty close. They're scoring 3.7 goals per game, allowing 3.5 per game. Each team has 1 shorthanded goals, 8 power play goals. And then it could be an interesting matchup because I will say, not that I'm saying like, Pittsburgh is not good, Buffalo's going to roll it. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm a little surprised to see the fact that the Penguins are favored in this game, because not that the Sabres are lighting the world on fire like they did in 2006, but the Sabres are 6-3. They've won back-to-back, and this is a Pittsburgh team that's lost 5 in a row. I get it. They just took the best team in the league to a shootout last night or overtime, whichever it was. And yes, that does pain me a little bit to say that the Boston Bruins are the best team in the league, but it's true. The Sabres, I think, have a fairly decent shot to win this game. I really think they do, which could never be said about Buffalo and Pittsburgh games in the past. But this is a Sabres team. I get it. It's early, but Buffalo is in second in the Atlantic Division. The Sabres are 6-3. They've got 12 points. Only Boston lies ahead in the Atlantic Division. Is that sustainable? I think that's been the big question on a lot of Sabres fans' minds, because we all know that Buffalo has started hot and cooled off. I mean, how many years in a row have they done it? In 2018, remember right around Thanksgiving, they won 10 games in a row. And then later in the season, they had a stretch where they went, I think, 3 months without winning back-to-back games. They did it again in 2019. They had a really hot start, and then they fell off. That was under Ralph Kruger. And so a lot of people, not just Sabres fans, a lot of people are very skeptical as to, okay, how is Buffalo really going to do, considering the fact that it seems like every year they always have such a great first month or so, and then they just fall off the face of the earth. But I think that it's a little, I don't know as if it's really that case anymore, because I think that, I think back then, part of the problem was, go back and look, and I re-examined this. I remember when that 2018-2019 season came to an end. I re-examined, the 10-game win streak and see if I could find any signs of, because how in the world do you win 10 games in a row and then go nowhere the rest of the year? So I kind of looked back through, and looking at that roster, you just knew that it wasn't sustainable. It was not a roster that was really built to be a playoff team. It was not that they weren't good, because they certainly had good players, but they were also winning a lot of their games in overtime or in a shootout. Not that that's luck-based, but you have every single close game is going your way. That can turn, and it turned hard on that team. This is not the case. The Sabres, in their 9 games, they only played in 1 overtime game this year, and they won it. You know, they're winning games. Like, they won 8-3 against Detroit. They beat the Flames 6-3 in their building. They beat the Oilers 4-2 in their building. They opened up the year with a 4-1 win over Ottawa. They lost by 1 to the best team in the league from last year. You know, 2 out of the 3 losses that the Sabres have sustained have been by 1 goal. The only one that sticks out is that 5-1 loss last Tuesday night against the Kraken in Seattle. In Buffalo, I'm not going to lie, Buffalo has a little bit of a tough schedule staring them in the face. I mean, they play Pittsburgh tonight. They're in Carolina Friday night. They're in Tampa Saturday night. Those could be very interesting games. Then next week, they're home against Arizona on Tuesday night. They host Vegas on Thursday night. Hello, Jack Eichel. And then on Saturday, November 12th, they host the Bruins. So you're looking at, I mean, after tonight against Pittsburgh, you're looking at 4 out of 5 games against teams that were really good last year and or are also very good this year. So it's a tough schedule. I really think that next week and into the midst of November, I think in that stretch, we're going to really see what the Sabres are made of, because not that they've been beating lesser opponents, because that's absolutely not the case. They beat the Oilers and Flames in their building. That is absolutely not the case. They almost beat Florida, second game of the season. But I think that it's, you know, you're going to Carolina, always a tough place to play down in Raleigh. You're going to Tampa, the team that has represented the Eastern Conference in the Stanley Cup Finals 3 years in a row. You know, you come home, you're playing Vegas. Jack Eichel's back. Oh, my goodness gracious. That's always an interesting time. You're hosting Boston, who is right now the best team in the NHL. I think really we're going to see what the Sabres are made of. And I think it's a really good test for them. All right, so that'll do it for the Sabres. Remember, 7:30 TNT tonight, Sabres at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins, looking for a 7-3 start. So we're going to take a break from talking about sports. We'll do our regular weekly Grapevine announcement, and then we'll finish up this afternoon show talking about the Buffalo Bills. So for the Grapevine announcement, talking about Fredonia Skate Club, this is a really fun club. I let me tell you, I have 2 left feet, though. I don't think I could skate. I would probably fall flat on my face. But anyways, for anybody who can skate, join Fredonia Skate Club Saturdays at 1 p.m. in the Chautauqua Hall parking lot for an open skate. Skate Club is a new club that accepts anyone interested in skateboarding. New skaters, experienced skaters, casual skaters, longboarders, and more. Follow them on Instagram at _Fredonia_skateboard_club_ to stay up to date on any changes to their weekly meeting. So I guess I was a little bit misleading. I didn't mean to say that anybody who can't skate can't join. Of course you can, because why not? I actually know the people who are involved with that club. They're fantastic. So we flip our focus now for the last, 10 or 11 minutes of our show to talk about the Bills. And of course, the Bills have now won 4 in a row. They're 6-1, and Sunday night beating the Green Bay Packers 27-17. And it was not, a lot of people said that it was an ugly win. It was whatever. And then you also follow up with a win's a win. So I think that I'm not going to lie. I would have liked to have seen the Bills wrap up that game better. I really, my main thought that was sticking with me on Sunday night was I'm really disappointed in how they're finishing this game off, because they're better than that. They made mistakes. And what I was saying, what I kept thinking of, you can't make those kinds of mistakes against a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. You just can't. The Packers have lost 4 in a row now. Yes, that's true. But you cannot make those kinds of mistakes. I mean, Josh Allen was he had a couple throws that were just ridiculous. Like mind-numbing interceptions. I'm thinking, why? For what purpose? I thought that they were trying to force things late, and it made no sense. And it was a little bit like, come on, like, can you wake up and finish the game, please? It was 27-10 going into the fourth quarter. And then the Bills defense just couldn't. They were kind of struggling to stop the run. I was really surprised. Another observation I have from this game, I was really surprised at how committed to the run game the Packers were. I mean, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon were both carrying a heavy workload. I was surprised that they didn't try to throw a little more, especially considering the fact that Tre'Davious White is still out and Micah Hyde is lost for the season. I didn't really expect them to commit to the run game as heavily as they did, but it kind of worked for them. Not well enough, obviously, as Buffalo came away with the win, but the Bills' defense, I thought, really needed to tighten up that run game a little bit better. You know, they made some mistakes. They just got to clean it up. They're playing the Jets on Sunday. So Aaron Rodgers did not have a great game. He was not also particularly awful. He went 19 of 30 for 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he did throw 1 interception. Josh Allen, 13 of 25 for 218 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Aaron Jones, like I said, had a big night, 20 carries for 143 yards. And as a lot of people have talked about, what happened between Stephon Diggs and Jair Alexander before the game, as they were having a rather heated discussion coming down the tunnel before the game, and it didn't get physical, of course, but it got rather verbal, and both players addressed it in their post-game press conferences, and Stephon Diggs said something to the tune of, "I didn't start it, but I finished it." And Jair Alexander kind of said-ish the same thing. So a recap of the game, now that we have all of the context in the world, seemingly, a recap of the game. Buffalo scored first, and they really seemed to be in control early. Josh Allen throwing a 1-yard touchdown to Dawson Knox. That put Buffalo ahead 7-0 after an 8-play drive. It was 7-0 Bills. After the first quarter, they were driving in the second. First play of quarter number 2, Allen with a 26-yard touchdown pass to Stephon Diggs. That capped off a 4-play, 51-yard drive. I believe that might have been after the interception. 14-0 Buffalo. And then the Packers kind of drove down the field. 6:15 left in the half. Aaron Rodgers, a 19-yard touchdown pass to Romeo Doubs, the rookie. That caps off a 12-play drive and closed the gap to 14-7. Late in the half, first play after the 2-minute warning, Isaiah McKenzie with a 7-yard rushing touchdown as the Bills took a 21-7 lead following an 8-play, 80-yard drive. And the Bills would get the ball back, and Tyler Bass nailed a 42-yard field goal as time expired. Buffalo led 24-7 at the end of the first half. In the second half, a few minutes into the third quarter, Mason Crosby a 38-yard field goal to make it 24-10. And then with about 6 minutes left in the third quarter, Tyler Bass from 38 makes it 27-10. So it's 27-10 Buffalo at the end of the third quarter, and the Bills definitely seem to be in command of this one. And then the Packers started driving a little bit. You know, the Packers drove down the field, and Mason Crosby actually missed a field goal. And then the Packers got it back after Buffalo's, that might have been actually after an Allen interception. And then the Packers drove down again, and Aaron Rodgers with a 37-yard touchdown pass to Samori Toure. And that was after Allen threw an interception in the red zone, and an 8-play, 95-yard drive resulted in that touchdown. So 6:32 left. It's 27-17. Gabe Davis took a 15-yard penalty at some point as well. And now Bills fans are thinking, all right, come on, let's go here. Let's wake up and finish this game. And they did. They ended up winning 27-17, but still not exactly the end of a game you would like to see by Buffalo. Good team effort to get the win. Just really need to clean it up at the end of games, and you'll be fine. Just got to get ready for the Jets on Sunday to try and go to 7-1. The Packers actually had more total yards in this game. It was 398 to 369. Packers had a more time of possession. First downs were close, 21-20 in favor of Green Bay. But overall, I really thought that the first 3 quarters were good. I mean, they had a 17-point lead. However, and I know they won by 10, so I can't really harp on it too much, but you got to close out games better than that, especially when you know that you've got a target on your back. I mean, this is the reality that we're facing. The Bills are a team that has a target on their back. They are the team to beat in the NFL. So that's why it becomes so very important to be able to close games off. And I wish I could find, I was texting because I often do this. I always text my mom about the Bills games. And we were talking about just how things were going, and I wish I could find the text because I summed up in my mind, the game pretty well. Although that's the Sabres game. Anyways, either way, moral of the story, I like to sum up the games. And I would sum up this game as I don't really agree with people calling it a sloppy win, because I feel like that takes away from the entire rest of the game. In reality, in my opinion, the first 3 quarters were very good. It was just the fourth quarter they made some mistakes. Allen threw some terrible interceptions, which is so unlike him, which is why I don't think that it's something that's going to be repeated. I think that McDermott is going to really work on this with the guys. They're going to get it going. The Bills are, of course, headed to New Jersey to take on the Jets on Sunday. The Jets are 5-3, but they're coming in after a loss. And by the way, the Bills are all-time under McDermott are 6-0 following a bye week. That I can remember a few years back was always a struggle. I can remember times where they would, coming off the bye, they would just do nothing. And it got rather irritating, I'm not going to lie, because they'd come off a bye week and they'd lose 37-13 to the Minnesota Vikings or something like that. And it was always very frustrating, especially when it was home after a bye week and they would lose. They would come out just flat. McDermott really, I think, does a fantastic job of keeping the guys in game shape over the bye week. I think he also does I think he balances it well. They balance it well in the sense that they're not overworking so as to tire themselves out, but they're also making sure that they're still prepared to get ready to go for game day. And the Bills are 6-1. They are heading to New Jersey to take on the Jets. And really, this is, and I don't mean to discredit the other teams in the NFL, but Buffalo has essentially just gotten out of what is the toughest part of their season. The Bills' schedule was unbelievably front-loaded. It was crazy. I mean, you play the Rams, defending Super Bowl champs, the Titans, last year's 1 seed in the AFC, the Dolphins, probably going to be a playoff team this year, the Ravens, playoff team. You know, you play the Steelers. I know the Steelers are struggling, but they were a playoff team last year. You play the Chiefs, obviously, Kansas City. No, they don't need an introduction. You play Green Bay with a back-to-back defending MVP. I mean, the Bills every single week are playing a team that either has a winning record or did last year. And I think that now we're going to start seeing Buffalo kind of escape from the doldrums of the difficult schedule that they were kind of plagued with to start the season. They're 6-1. They got the Jets coming up, and they've got a few, I don't want to say easy games because I don't want to discredit the other teams that they play against, but they got Minnesota at home, they got Cleveland at home, they go to Detroit on Thanksgiving. So you've got some winnable games on the schedule following Sunday's game against the Jets, and that game is not going to be, the Jets are not the pushover they once were. However, I think it's a winnable game. I think Buffalo's got a very decent shot to come away with the win and go to 7-1, which would be the first time since dinosaurs walk the earth. I don't know, since Jim Kelly played in the Super Bowl, something like that. Either way, that'll do it for us on Big Blue Sports Talk. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll be right back here next Wednesday, same time, same place to recap Bills-Jets, preview of Bills-Vikings. We'll also talk Buffalo Sabres, recap everything going around in the professional sports world. I'm sure the World Series might be close to over, if not over by that point. And, of course, we're always talking Fredonia sports and leading off with that. Thanks for tuning in. I hope everybody has a great fall Wednesday. This has been Big Blue Sports Talk. I'm your host, Matt Volz. Be well, everybody. Go Blue Devils.